Okay, let's go ahead and check this out. So up here, this top part of the view is the timeline view that you typically have since Project 2010. And as I mentioned, as you add things onto this, it can get very busy. Now what we can do here, just for example, I minimize some of this. If I right-click on this, I can add it to the timeline. Oops. You'll see the task or the phase pop up on the timeline. At this point, I can do things like different color formatting, all kinds of fun stuff to tailor it to how I want to see it. I can also drag it out of the view so it becomes kind of a summary view, or a summary task in this case. Also, if I want to add a milestone, just select a milestone, I can add it to the timeline. So again, this is all basic timeline functionality that you've always had. The difference here is if you go up onto your ribbon to the timeline tools, you'll see this new option to add a timeline bar. And basically when you click on that, if you move your splitter bar down here, you'll see that you can also set up additional timelines. And this is what the multiple timeline allows you to do. So instead of having one really long timeline with maybe several tasks deep, getting pretty cluttered, you can break out sub-areas or work streams or phases and then put in the level of detail you want on that particular item. So if I go back down here, if I have one of these, oops, can't move it that way. I can go in, I can add it to any particular timeline and build a specific timeline out for that particular work stream. Now, everything else I mentioned earlier still applies. So if I save and publish this particular project, that multiple timeline view that I have set up right now will get synchronized both to PWA and then also down into the SharePoint site. So if I go into here and I publish this, and while that's publishing, I'm going to go back to PWA. I'm going to go into the Project Center. And if I go down here and find our acquisition target analysis, so there's the project. So there in the web browser, you can see the 3 timelines that I've added with the tasks that I added. Granted, yours would look a lot better than this. This is just a quick demo of it, but this is getting pushed out to there. And then also, if I go to the SharePoint site, there's the timeline out on the SharePoint site as well. I need to make the web part a little bit bigger to see the 3rd timeline, but there you go. All right, so that's the multiple timeline. Again, it's a pretty cool feature. Let's take a look at our next function, which is alerts and reminders. Now, for those of you that are using Project Server on-prem, you've always had alerts and reminders. But when Microsoft released Project Online, this was one function that they had turned off for a while. And the whole idea with the alerts and reminders is it's the system sending out emails to the resources or to the project manager or to the manager if a particular event happens. By default, there's 4 events that are turned on. So if you get assigned to a new task in one of your projects, you'll get an email alert. If any of your project tasks were modified for any reason, if a date was changed or percent complete updated or additional resource added to it, anything like that, you will get an email alert as well. If you get a status report request, that'll also generate an email. And then if any of your queue jobs fail, so this more likely applies to either timesheets or publishing your project. If either of those types of activities fail, you'll get an email saying there was a problem with either publishing or submitting your timesheet, depending on what the problem is. You'll get an email for that. Now, you can also set up additional alerts and reminders, either as you for your own personal use, or as a manager, you can set up the alerts and reminders for your resources. Keep in mind, email alerts, you got to be careful with them. If you do too much, it kind of becomes internal spam and people start complaining, or they create rules in Outlook to delete them for you. But it does give you a lot of different options. So if I go back into PWA here, and I go under server settings, you'll see this personal settings area, and there's 2 options here. There's manage my alerts and reminders, and manage my resources, alerts and reminders. This is where you set up what events will trigger an email alert for you. So as I mentioned, the ones you see with the checkboxes, they're the default ones. But you have a number of different reminders for tasks. So if you have a task that's coming up or a task that's become overdue, anything like that could trigger a reminder. Same thing with status reports. If you have something coming up, it's overdue, it can trigger you a status report reminder. And then you also have the queue job failures, which is on by default. And again, if you're a manager, you can also set this for your resources. You do have to have your RBS set up in order for that to work. Now, by default, this is not turned on. So if you want to turn on the email notifications, you go under Operational Policies, Additional Server Settings, and then down the last option here, Turn On Notifications. Once you turn that on, it'll start sending out email notifications. So the way this actually works is if I go into a particular project, and let's say I create some tasks, I'm just building out a quick project schedule here. But if I go into here and I assign me to these tasks, once I go ahead and publish this, I'll start getting email notifications about the task that I just added. And of course, they're not always sent out immediately. There is a timer job that sends these out like pretty much every 5 minutes. So we may or may not see them right away. But kind of looks like they're going to start coming through any second now. So here's a queue job failed message, right? So it had a problem creating the SharePoint site. So you get it, this is an example of one of the messages. And then also, as you, in a couple minutes up there, there it is. Here's the notification that I've been assigned to the following tasks. So there's develop solution, test solution, deploy solution. Gives you a little snapshot of the task itself, what its start date, finish date, how many hours, what its percent complete is. And then also, if you have other tasks on the project that have been updated, they'll show up here as well. So you don't get an email notification for every single task you've been assigned to. It'll come in this digest form. It's pretty user-friendly, and they've actually dressed it up pretty nicely compared to how Project Server sends them out. Now, with Project Server, you do have the ability to customize these, but with Project Online, you don't have any customization options. So it's the alerts and reminders. Next, we have the out-of-the-box reports and dashboards. So Microsoft added a SharePoint add-on to provide more reports and dashboards out of the box for Project Online. It's called the Office 365 Project Portfolio Dashboard. You can find it if you go through the SharePoint App Store. Just keep in mind you're going to have to be an administrator to add it to your PWA. And what it does is it provides out-of-the-box, basic portfolio dashboard and some sub-reports. You can also create additional dashboards. It's kind of templatized. You can use some different report widgets. One thing to note is it's pretty limited with the customizations. They can only anticipate, so many customizations that a customer might make. You can use enterprise custom fields for your filters, groupings, sortings, but you can't add those fields that you've added to a chart or to a table that might be in these particular dashboards. And they don't give you the ability to customize that app. So in a case like that, you probably still have to go back to a partner, or if you have one of your report writers, to create the custom report that you're going to need. But still, it's a lot more functionality you're going to get out of the box. So if I go back to here, and here I'm in the app itself. So it installs itself as a sub-site, a sub-SharePoint site within your PWA. And when you go into here, you'll have a number of different projects, a number of different dashboards. What you're looking at right here is the default dashboard, so you'll get this cost versus baseline cost, cost by EPT. You'll have a table below, which will show information about some of the different projects you have. And then there's also subsections. So for example, if I drill down into particular projects, task level information, resource information, or the content itself. And then I can also offer the overview. If I go in and I drill down into a particular project, I can have a sub-project dashboard. And as you can see, they have a lot of pretty common views of data, and really depends on whether or not you're using all this functionality within the tool. But if you are using cost, you can get some idea on your budget or cost overruns. Same thing with work, missed deadlines, work that's still scheduled in the past, which is a big no-no. Issues, risk on that particular project. You have this nice executive summary view with some cards and some tables below on milestones and issues. And then you also have a heat map on the individual task and how are they doing as far as variances either on work or cost. Now up under ribbon is where you can go in and you can look at some of the other dashboards that they have set up out of the box. So if you're looking at projects from last year, next year's projects, main difference between these particular dashboards is what's being filtered or, included or not being included. You can also remove any of these if they don't really apply, so you can go ahead and delete them. But more importantly, you can also create your own dashboard. So you could go into here create a new dashboard. You can specify what projects to include. So I could go into here and say I want project departments that equal finance, so just finance projects. If I go down to sections, I can specify what section do I want to modify. I can have some different layouts. I can say what charts do I want to include in each one of these sections. So these are the little report widgets that you have. So you have 5 different tables that you can pick from, and then some different charts that you can pick from. So again, it's pretty nice because you can add your own portfolio dashboard using some of these pre-built widgets that they have in the app. The downside is if you want something very, specific to your requirements or to your organization's requirements, you may or may not be able to build it out with the app itself. It is very canned the way it's set up. But again, it's pretty cool. So here, as I go into here, you can see some different dashboards. So if I pick the one that I just created, you can see the layout that I picked. And I didn't change all these, but as we go down through these, you can see the subsections. And you can tailor each one of these subsections. All right. The other thing, too, is it does cache your project data. So depending on what you're looking at, you might not have the latest information. You do have the ability to refresh the data periodically. So, for example, there, I can go and I can force it to refresh that cache. They do that just to speed up some of the rendering of the reporting. Okay, so that was the demo on the Office 365 Project Portfolio Dashboard. If you're looking for that, it is in the SharePoint App Store. So if you just go ahead and search for it, and then you can add it. But again, you have to be an admin to add it, so just keep that in mind. So I hope you guys enjoyed the 4 different topics that I spoke about today. Let your account manager know if you're interested in anything that we covered. I didn't have a lot of time to go in depth with everything, but we can provide a deeper dive demo to others in your organization. So if you want to show some of this capability to somebody else, we could also provide assistant design setup if you already have Project Online or Quick PMO. And of course, if you don't have Project Online or Quick PMO, we can always talk to you about deployment options and migration options as well. So with that, I will hand it back over to Victoria. All right, I will, unless Aaron, do you want to cover this? I think Victoria's having audio issues again.
Thanks, Neil. Thanks, everybody, for joining us on the webcast. We have a lot of social media sites that are very active with all of our updates, what's going on in the industry, what's going on with Microsoft and Vibrant Fusion. So if you guys want to connect with us, you'll be the first to know about anything that happens. And also, we'll be sending out a survey for the webcast. Like Victoria said, we use the surveys to just come up with new topics, and we really want to tailor the information we give during the webcast to you guys. We're here for you. So if you guys want to fill that out and send it back, that would be awesome. And we'll also be sending you a recording to this webcast. So if you guys want to check it out or show anybody in your organization, that'll be available. Once again, thank you guys so much, and thanks, Neil, for such an awesome presentation.
Thanks, everybody.